All right, let's come back and wrap this up with a very important insight that I'd like to share with you, really about myself, if you'd allow me to do that. Um, the whole story of what's happened with COVID in our society, as I said in my initial video, I believe it was in March of 2020, has been most upsetting to me from my background in sociology and philosophy, okay, and anthropology, studying people in society. What has happened to the fabric of American society, we all know, is extremely troubling. And I believe really the core problem, or the root of the problem, is that many folks are not bothering to learn from the mistakes of people before us. Learn from history. Read. Every book that you see behind you, by the way, this is just my office. These are books mostly that have been donated to me by patients. I have multiples of this at my home, and I have been an avid reader. I used to love to ride the bike to the library. I see that reading is a lost art. If you think that asking your phone, let me give you an example. My son was studying the 10 Commandments in school the other day. I asked my phone, tell us the 10 Commandments, and it took us to Wikipedia's version of the 10 Commandments, after which it said the 10 Commandments were based on ancient Mesopotamian rules, and they were so basically nothing that was divinely inspired. So if you think that talking to your phones and going to Wikipedia is any way to get information, I hope you understand it is not. As a matter of fact, doctors like me have been called conspiracy theorists, and we've been taken off of most of those platforms. No, getting to books like my original, the way textbooks used to be written in medical school, which were objective. Now they're not. All right. One of my patients gave me a book about a very famous scientist, and check this out. This is what this scientist wrote some time ago. As long as I have any choice in the matter, I shall live only in a country where civil liberty, tolerance, and equality of all citizens before the law prevail. Civil liberty implies freedom to express one's political convictions in speech and in writing. Tolerance implies respect for the convictions of others, whatever they may be. That's interesting. Tolerance implies respect for the conviction of others, whatever they may be. Are we seeing a lot of that nowadays? These conditions do not exist in blank at the present time. What country was he writing about? Well, that was Dr. Einstein talking about Germany, his homeland, all right? You can read The Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn and learn a little bit more about what it's like to live in a society where fear is the predominant factor in human behavior. Fear. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Our children are growing up in a climate of fear. And worse than that, as a physician who's taken care of body, mind, and spirit for over 30 years and seen the ravages of depression and anxiety and abuse in women and children and men of all ages, I'm making a bold prediction, which I think everyone will have to agree with, that this generation of children will forever be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And I might be the first one to say that. But you're going to see children who were raised in these years, who were forced to quarantine, forced to stay out of playgrounds, off of team sports, wear masks, go get tested up their nose, left and right, and other things happening. Their grandma's dying, their parents dying, and not being able to see them in the hospital, not being able to go to a funeral to grieve the loss of a loved one, not just the children, but the adults. All of this has been intentional. This is intentional so we can create a society where we have mass psychosis or mental illness, whatever we want to call it. It is definitely nothing less than post-traumatic stress disorder. And these children will be reminded for the rest of their lives, do you want to go back and live like you lived in 2020 and 21 and 22? If you don't, you better line up dutifully for your vaccine every year against a common cold virus. That's what you're going to be. And the parents, I'm a family doctor. Family systems theory is a wonderful field, which unfortunately has disappeared from family medicine because unfortunately a lot of family physicians in training don't get this training. But the reality is that the health experience, the disease, and the dying experiences in a family stay with that family for generations. So if a child dies from a ruptured aneurysm in his or her brain when she's 5 years old, every child after that that has a headache, that mother or father is going to worry and fear that that child's headache is another aneurysm. They're going to rush to the emergency room. That's how it works in families. If the mother suffers from, or mother dies from cancer when she's 32 and the child sees that, the child's going to be fearful of developing cancer. You can go on and on. This way of creating fear in families is disastrous to the body, mind, and spiritual health, the physical, mental, and spiritual health of the individual. We cannot tolerate it when especially it is being done intentionally. This pandemic of fear leading to this PTSD that we're going to see was a calculated way to perpetuate the financial success and the political control exercised by the pharmaceutical and the vaccine corporations and whoever's behind that at a higher level. So, on that cheerful note, okay, we must not succumb to fear. Coronavirus is still a cold virus. It is still treatable in its even in its most deadly forms, alpha and delta, and whatever may come down the road. I happen to think that, and many of us think that the Omicron is a sign that the coronavirus is mutating into less lethal variants. But that doesn't change the fact that we'll still be dealing with this, the thought that we could die from it. So I've gotten a record number of phone calls. Today's a Sunday, yesterday's Saturday, New Year's Eve, Christmas Day, phone calls from all sorts of people with sore throats and backaches and coughs and colds. I never would have gotten those phone calls in years past. But now everyone is fearful that they're going to die. That's how it works. And so I remember as a kid, I'll tell you, I can remember lining up in elementary school. The siren would go off. All the kids would run out into the hallways, put their hands over the back of their head, and go along the walls of the hallways. Why were we doing that drill? Because we were fearful. We were fearful that during the Cold War, that Russia would come and bomb my school in Brentwood, Long Island, okay? That's how we were raised as children. And that fear of the Soviet Union, okay, was important for Americans to have at that time. Possibly it was over the top. I think we could argue it might have been. Now we're doing the same thing with COVID in the year 2022. We're creating the same effect as having these school children line up with their, we're telling school children right now in my son's Catholic school, because he's unvaccinated, if he is around a kid who gets coronavirus, whatever variant, Omicron, any common cold, he has to quarantine, but the vaccinated kids get to go right back to school. That's in my son's Catholic school here in Orlando, Florida. I don't know what's happening around the rest of the country, but that is blatant discrimination against children, and it's designed to intimidate the child into coming home to the parents saying, hey, mom, dad, I want to be playing sports, I want to go to school, give me the vaccine so I can be a normal kid like my friends, okay? That sort of psychological warfare that's being played out day in and day out on our children and on the parents of our children obviously is unconscionable. It doesn't belong in this great nation, all right? We need to still be a nation where, as I've said on that 7-minute video some time ago, decent people can save America from the culture of contempt. Love your enemies, all right? That's how we do it. By the way, this is pink. This is my producer's phone, but it's kind of a cool pink. Pink is cool. Real men wear pink. Lastly, I want to tell you something. Back in the 70s at Cornell University, this is one of my books. It was called The Use and Abuse of Biology, all right? Pretty amazing that many years ago, 40 years ago, I was studying how science can be co-opted by multinational corporations and political entities to achieve an end which is against the true meaning of science and health care, right? This is what I learned. So I came out of Cornell University in 1980, and I was extremely distrustful of multinational corporations. I was extremely distrustful of our political system. In fact, I was a socialist. I was an outright socialist when I came out of Cornell. And then life goes on, and I become a family physician. I wrote this book called The Hidden Truth, and I wrote on page 25, mind you, your pediatrician or your family physician does not see himself or herself as acting as an agent of the federal government, he or she is simply acting upon recommendations made by organizations such as the American Academy of Pediatricians, Family Physicians, OBGYN, or the CDC. These organizations advocate what they believe to be in the best interest of the entire population, the greatest good, but at the expense of the ability of mothers and fathers to make individual choices for their families. All right? So as I wrote, this is written over the course of 25 years. This book came out a few years ago. I said, why not allow individuals to make their own decisions about matters of, in this case, reproductive health, in the case of coronavirus, immunological health, rather than be coerced into receiving vaccines and other medications based solely upon what someone has decided is best for the entire population. All right? It's much easier just to blindly follow recommendations by the CDC, the FDA, the World Health Organization, or our academies. And especially when those academies are saying we're not going to certify you as a board certified physician unless you blindly obey. So this blind obedience to these dictates, all right, you need to understand what it is. So as I said to a person recently who was in charge of a school here where the children are now back wearing the masks again, I said, you are teaching school children to blindly obey authority rather than to use their God-given ability to reason. Why do I wear a mask going through the hallways of school, but I don't have to wear one when I'm playing basketball? You know, what is all this mask wearing about? What is all this vaccine about? What is all this quarantining about? It's about the pandemic of fear and the need to control. And as I've said earlier, the only way to overcome that is using your own ability to reason, have faith, all right? Go to the original sources. Go back to the Bible. Be not afraid, all right? Understand who you can trust, who you can't trust. I know these are uncertain times, but I have confidence in Americans to make the right decision. We've done it before. We can do it again. Get this video out to your friends and family before they take it down on YouTube. We'll find other places to put it. Thank you for your time. This is a very important issue. I had to share it with you. I got to go off to church right now. God bless you. Have a beautiful day.